Welcome to Barnyard Language. We are Katie and Arlene, an Iowa sheep farmer and an Ontario dairy farmer, with 6 kids, 2 husbands, and a whole lot of chaos between us. So kick off your boots, reheat your coffee, and join us for some Barnyard Language. Honest talk about running farms and raising families.
In case your kids haven't already learned all the swears from being in the barn, it might be a good idea to put on some headphones or turn down the volume. While many of our guests are professionals, they aren't your professionals. If you need personalized advice, consult your people. Welcome to another episode of Barnyard Language. And today we have Katie and I in the same room recording our first ever live, well, no, it's not live, first ever update together. So
We're live.
Yeah, we're live.
Together.
It's not live that you will hear it. Anyway, you know what I mean. So it's weird. We're in the same room, huddled together on a couch because we have one microphone because we've never recorded together, and Katie didn't pack hers in her luggage, which is fine.
Sorry.
That's okay. So, Katie, I'm not going to ask what's happening in Iowa because you're not there. So, what's happening here in Ontario? She's looking out the window. She's going to give you the weather report.
The weather. Snow.
Yeah.
Looks like maybe some sun now. I don't see any cows running loose, so that's good. I don't see any children running loose, so that is also good.
Well, the children could go outside. They'd be fine.
Yeah, but I don't see them like running amok. So
Yeah,
that's
directly out
good.
this window.
Yeah. We're getting ready to go to Maida's birthday party.
Yeah.
An inflatable parade, which
Yeah.
is very exciting.
Past guest Maida is celebrating her 40th birthday, which means inflatables at an 80s dance party in a barn. So Katie gets to enjoy that. And stay tuned for photos.
I sadly left my 80s clothes at home with my microphone.
Oh, sadly. Yeah, she doesn't sound too sad about that.
No.
So what is travel like from rural Iowa to rural Ontario? How long did that take you?
3 hours in the car, 2 hours on a plane, 3 hours in an airport, an hour on a plane, and then legitimately the most enthusiastic greeting I've ever gotten at an airport.
I was not in an inflatable, unfortunately.
No, but Arlene and her mom made a lovely sign and brought a Canadian flag and greeted me at the airport. It was delightful.
And
Canada
then,
did not lose my luggage.
Yeah, and then another hour after
hour
that.
in the car.
Yeah, so basically a giant voyage to get from one place to the other. But those of you in rural places know what that's like.
It was a tremendously uneventful trip.
That's
and
the
I got
right
to
kind.
see my friend Holly in Minneapolis. She's a listener as well. That was lovely. I got to meet some more listeners and some past guests. And
yeah, we met up with Dr. Jessica, who came to join us. She's just in upstate New York, so not all that far from here. So she came to my little town, and we went out for Indian food, and then we got to go to the farm of past guest Claire Smith, who also has a fantastic cheese room. So we got some cheese, which is like the best kind of farm tour. Any farm tour is good, but when you get free cheese, that's also an added bonus. And she fed us lunch, which was fantastic.
And Arlene's husband has been teaching me about curling because the Women's Canadian Championships are on.
They are, yeah.
Like my preferred sport of NASCAR, there is more going on than I would have expected. So
yeah.
It was more interesting than I was prepared to.
We're telling her lots of rules, and she's questioning whether they are all actual or if we're making fun of her. But we're not being. Yeah, there is actually a thing called a hammer, but there's no literal hammer.
There's no actual hammer.
Yeah. Oh, and the other thing we did was we got Katie to come and help organize. Well, not organize, but peel potatoes and prep and be at our 4-H awards dinner. So we got to peel some potatoes and peel some carrots and get ready for a 4-H supper. So, Katie, what are your first impressions of Canada? What's different? What have you noticed?
French.
Okay, yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah. And not all that much of it, really.
No, but it's always interesting traveling to another English-speaking country because things seem more similar, so things that are different seem weirder than when you travel to a totally different place, and it's like, everything here is different. Of course the packaging is different.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, we went on a cultural experience all the way to Walmart, so that was exciting. Yeah. What products are the same? What's different?
No guns at Canadian Walmart, but they do have hockey sticks and hockey jerseys, which we do not have. And all sorts of cookies that we don't have.
Yeah.
All sorts of strange cookies.
Yeah, the chocolate bar selection was significantly different.
Yeah. In the name of science, we bought some cookies to test out, to investigate.
We should do that.
Yeah. Arlene, how are things in Ontario?
Well, I think we covered a lot of it already.
Okay. I felt like I should ask.
Yeah, I don't think there's much else Those are the
There's
main
some
things.
weird, creepy lady in her house, but she hasn't kicked her out yet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so we are at the stage where we don't have a spare room anymore. So we had to kick the youngest out of his bedroom, and he's now bunking in with his two other older brothers. So he's delighted because he gets to have sleepovers with his big brothers, and they are less thrilled, but
they've all
they're
been
fine.
very polite to me about it.
Yeah, not
So
too many Iowa jokes, really.
no, no, less than I anticipated.
Yeah,
A little disappointed.
they're just warming up too, I
Yeah.
think.
I'm sure that Tuesday morning before they leave for
Yeah,
school, there will be a real flurry
yeah,
of
they'll start firing them off.
healthcare jokes.
And other than peeling potatoes, we haven't made Katie work yet, but maybe she can milk with us Tuesday before she leaves or something like that.
That'd be fun.
And we got
The
some photos taken together, so we don't have to just Photoshop our heads into pictures. So stay tuned for those. We might roll those out over a little while. And we already decided that anyone who's on Patreon is going to get all the outtakes because there's a lot of awkwardness.
There's some great ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So stay tuned, patrons. And if you like the show, you can join our Patreon and see all the embarrassing stuff because we have a price.
In regards to the 4-H dinner, the food was delightful, the people were delightful, and Hugh Hunter's management of program length was masterful. It's possibly the shortest program of that sort I've ever been to.
That is the best part. Keep it short and snappy. And there was no gun raffle.
There was no gun raffle. There was
which
no meat raffle.
Which I did not know was a thing.
None of the delightful ways that we raise money in the U.S. Sadly.
Yeah. So our guest for today has been waiting patiently. I think we interviewed her way back in November, maybe. Anyway, it's been a while. So
it might have been the end of October.
Anyway, she's gotten bumped a few times for some other kind of seasonal episodes, but thank you so much for your patience, Mrs. Cates, and we are excited for you to listen to her interview. Today, we are very lucky to be talking to Julie Cates, who is a 6th grade teacher joining us from California. So, Julie, we start each of our interviews with the same question, and this is a way that you can introduce yourself to our listeners. So we ask, what are you growing? And this can cover crops or livestock if you're a farmer, and then families, businesses, careers, all kinds of other things. So Julie, what are you growing?
Hi, well, good morning, and thank you for having me. So at home, I am trying to grow celery, and I have a few chickens, so we're producing a few eggs. But at school, in our classroom, we're very excited to be partnering with Fairchild Botanical Gardens and NASA to have a growth chamber with some basil and cilantro cultivars. So that's what we're growing at school.
So, Julie, did you grow up on a farm, or how did you get involved in agriculture?
You know what? I did not grow up on a farm. I actually, we moved to the Central Valley. My husband had a job relocation, and that's where I was exposed to all this agriculture. And it's really amazing. We have an international agri center, which I saw that on the highway, like, what? International? We're in the middle of nowhere. What is that about? And it's this giant farm show. And so I went there in 2007, and that's when I started to become excited about it.
So, for our less U.S. geography minded
Okay.
friends, can you tell us a little about what the Central Valley is and where it is?
Yes. So California is a densely populated, long state, and the Central Valley, in terms of agriculture, is in the middle of the state, both longitudinally and latitude. Like we're south, we're directly between Bakersfield and Fresno, or like halfway between LA and San Francisco, but inland toward Yosemite National Park, Sequoia National Park. And so it's this long stretch of growing area, which essentially is a desert, but Californians have been irrigating it. It was naturally irrigated, and now there's a lot of water wars about all of that, but needless to say, we grow a lot of fruits and vegetables and nut and dairy in our area.
I want to say it's one of the richest horticultural growing areas in the country, correct?
Definitely.
As opposed to row crops like we grow in Iowa. You know?
Yes. So yes, we have in California, we have over 400 specialty crops. And so that means it's not corn or soybeans. So we have a lot of, like, all of the lettuces are grown, but those are over on the central coast. We're on the Central Valley, so we're in a drier area. And so I don't know if people know that, but the lettuce that you probably buy at the store was typically grown in the coastal region of Central California or maybe Arizona. Not here where we are, though.
Yeah, I had no idea how much lettuce is grown in Arizona. It does not seem like the most logical place. Yeah, but
Like it would be conducive. Yeah. I toured it actually a couple of years ago, the Earthbound Farms when they started purchasing land and growing there. I went on an ag tour of
mm,
the lettuce. It was pretty amazing.
yeah, it's interesting to see how California is really adjusting to the changing demands on agriculture, especially with climate change. And,
Yes.
it's really stressing a lot I guess. I was
It's
trying to come up with a nice way to put it
yes,
that
it's
didn't sound
definite,
quite so.
right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely distressful. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, but farmers are having to take out large orchards and fields just because we really don't have water. It's
Yeah.
pretty hard.
And how did you know that wanted to become a teacher? And what possessed you to want to spend your life with other people's children? Um,
Insanity. No,
got it.
no. I actually did not. I actually always wanted to be a nurse, but all of that math and science, when I was in high school and they threaten you with all that math and science in college, I was afraid of that. Um, so I did a lot of other things, and I worked always since 15, and did all these other things and had children, and then I finished my degree very late in life. So I'm an old new teacher. So I've been only a teacher for about 8 years, and when I finished my degree, I lived in different parts of the country for my husband's work. And when I finished my degree here in California, my first job was with cooperative extension, and I was a nutrition educator. And all of the teachers I worked with said, "You have to be a teacher. Like, this is your thing. Do it." So I did. And I fell in love with agriculture when I got here. So I had to incorporate it all the time. Like, it's so important. And it's really vital to all the kids who live here because it's like 1 in 4 jobs are related to that. And people don't know either. They don't have a concept of how important it is to eat.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
weird. You'd think that people would understand that food is important to all of
Right?
us.
Yeah.
Um, Arlene, do you guys have university extension in Canada or something like that?
Not really. Not in the same way, no.
Julie, I'm in Iowa, which is, hardcore land grant
Yes.
university territory. And
Yes.
the state extension is one of the biggest blessings and resources that we have around here. And it's really,
Definitely. So for the people that don't know, I think it was like 1906, I want to say. I'm not sure which chicken or the egg, but the university system and the farm bureau system were developed. And so they work together. And so in California, we have a pretty robust extension system. And so there are crop advisors that are particular to different, nut crops and row crops and dairy and all those things. And so each county, we have 57 counties, and each county has a farm bureau and or an extension office that they can get all these free resources from. And so it's really amazing.
I guess that was the question I was going to ask is about, whether those resources are paid or free. But yeah, we definitely don't have a similar system in Canada that I know of anyway.
our state extension at least does everything from pressure testing people's canners to running the Master Gardeners program, 4-H. They do just all sorts of farm production classes and coaching and business coaching and farm succession planning, all sorts of things. So they're
Yes.
really an amazing resource.
So, Julie, you talked a little bit about the geography of where you're located, but can you tell us a little bit more about your community, where your school is, what it looks like in terms of the people and the families that your school is made up of?
Sure. So we're in where I teach um is in a town a town of about 140,000. And I'm not sure if that's considered suburban rural or so. We're kind of in the middle of the state. We have a hospital and we do not have a university. We have a community college. So that's sort of how big the town is. When I first moved there, I said, well, they have 10 Starbucks and 1 library. So those are the priority. Uh, the kid, I work in a Title I school, so that means we have a high percentage of low income and underperforming. And so that's the population I serve. And so that's part of why it's really important to always include like the STEM activities and the why behind everything. Um, and because some of my, I'd like to say a fourth maybe of my classroom, their dads or moms work on dairies or in a dairy related field. And so it's also really important for their self esteem to know that their parent uh, is part of something huge, huge and important to survival of the United States, really, in my opinion. Like, if we can't feed ourselves, how can we sustain ourselves?
I think that's such a key thing. My kids are in a very similar school in rural Iowa, so a very small town with a packing plant. So I want to say something like 60% of the students in the school are minority, and over 70% are below the poverty line. So it's a very different school than you see in any of the other communities in the area. But I think it has done such a disservice to ag that it's been sort of a for folks who can't do anything else who stay home and farm. And that's not at all the reality of agriculture now. And so melding those STEM skills with pride in what we do, because there are computers and robots and science and math. And, it's not a go out back and milk one cow by hand. And not that that does not also take science and math and a lot of skills, but, we're looking at a very different world. So, where does your passion for ag education and nutrition come from?
I think it started when I went to the International Ag Show and I asked so many questions that one of the booths thought I was a reporter and they were excited. They thought I was from some magazine. And I had to say, no, I'm just a person that knows nothing. And so then Cooperative Extension made me serve on a committee, an ag education committee with Farm Bureau. And they provided me with an ag in the classroom field trip. And that's where I became hooked. So I was always into nutrition. My degree is in communication, and I was always about um, positively putting the word out about proper nutrition. But I really became involved with ag because of Farm Bureau. And I want kids to eat healthy, but they need to know where it comes from. And nutrition isn't nutrition until they eat it. And so I just really, that's really important to me. Like, Takis are not food. Takis are chemicals. They not, I mean, I can't even attribute them to corn or soybeans or anything that's far from California. And so I'd really like them to eat food that is grown. And I had a sixth grader once that did not know that walnuts grew on trees. She thought walnuts were a thing that were made in a factory. She saw them in the store and she didn't know. And we live in a huge walnut growing area. So for a child to be in sixth grade and not know they weren't man-made was a shock.
On your Instagram, you have a, was it called, is it called Try It Tuesday or your,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
is that something you do in the classroom as well?
Yes, I do that in the classroom, and I have other teachers at school doing that as well now. And then I have a teacher friend who also I applied for a grant initially my first year teaching, and that's how I had to pay for it. But now I just pay for it myself. Or if people say, "Oh, my grapefruit tree is blooming, would you like these?" Yes, then we try that. But we attempt to try things that are in season and also reasonably priced because I want the kids to be able to buy it. So if I'm trying something exotic like dragon fruit, they always want to try dragon fruit, which is really fun. But that's just an excursion or like a treat because families can't afford to buy. That's very expensive. But all the other things like kids lettuce, different types of lettuce, if they've only had one kind of lettuce, they don't know. It's very exciting. So they love Try It Tuesday. So I have 3 teachers at my school doing it and a teacher in another community doing it as well.
Julie, speaking of accessibility of foods and knowing how depressing it is when the food that's grown in your area is too expensive for the families in your area, what are ways that families can get better access to, especially produce? I know myself learning more about the nutritional qualities, especially of frozen produce, was really astounding because we get such a push that it has to be fresh, which makes it so spendy. And, at least with kids like mine, my kids are 4 and 5, and we have a phenomenon that is referred to as sack of bananas, where you like your kids are obsessed with this one food. They will only eat this one food. You stock up on this one food and they're all like, what the hell? We're never eating that again. And so at least if it's frozen, you can kind of like save it until they forget that they hate that thing or sneak it in other places. So I'm wondering what your ideas are on making it more accessible for families to feed their.
Mhm. So that's a great question because where my school is not a food desert, but lots of other towns in our county are food deserts. So that's where they don't have access, even a grocery store. We have a very inexpensive grocery store near us, so that's not a huge problem at the moment. Um, but I do teach them um, that fresh, frozen, or canned are all going to have this high nutrient value because the food that is in frozen and canned came even faster from its source than the food that's in the grocery store. We also have a school garden, and though I assist with that, I'm not the garden leader, but we really focus on showing kids how to plant, how they can have that at home, lettuce even in a container. And then I also am into tricks. So I actually don't call them tricks. Like I don't hide my vegetables. I call it value added. And so we like to do fun things like if we have a pancake day, like peas and pancakes. So you can put frozen peas in the pancakes, like for St. Patrick's Day. It's super fun, right? Peas and pancakes. And um, you could even put the whole frozen vegetable medley in pancakes, and that's another way to get kids to eat things that's fun and they don't notice it. Um, I teach the kids a lot about spinach because spinach is kind of a bland tasting thing that you can put in anything. You're in the crock pot. I'm a big, huge crock pot person. So I have a crock pot in my classroom and I have sixth grade. So they're at the age where they can do things themselves. So I try to teach them things that they can make themselves, like hummus. Those are from canned garbanzos, and that's a great after school snack. And once they make it themselves, then they're hooked on, and it's a high protein, dense protein snack, and it's very cheap to make.
I will say my big trick now with my kids, they won't normally drink smoothies. I think they're on to me that there's like weird vegetables in there or whatever. But if I freeze them into popsicles and then I'm like, oh, look, you could have a popsicle for breakfast, they're right on it, and
Yeah,
it might just be the healthiest thing in the world. But if it's a popsicle and they can eat it for breakfast, they'll eat anything that way,
yeah,
and that's so yeah. I mean, I also don't prefer to hide things from my kids because that's not a great way to teach them to eat it.
right.
Um, but there's also times that you can throw spinach in pretty much anything without
Yeah,
really changing it.
yeah.
So
And I like to I like to tie a lot of fruits and vegetables to a curriculum. And so, because I love Try It Tuesday, but my first principle was like everything had to be tied to standards, and which it should, of course. But so I use a lot of like how does it grow, um, true food TV videos, and I use a lot of Ag in the Classroom material for sixth grade to reading and writing. But I also do things like when we're doing division of fractions in math, they cut zucchini. Like I give them an equation and then they have to cut the zucchini according to that. And then when we're finished with all that, we put it in a crock pot with some chicken broth and onions and other vegetables and we make a soup. And then they love it. Like, so they might not like squash before today. And then we try that and it's like the greatest thing ever. They go home, they tell their parents. And that's a very inexpensive meal that they can make for themselves.
That's a really great idea. Yeah, using those manipulatives, which we know helps kids learn and retain information, but then not having those just be thrown out or you take them home, right? Like actually doing that in front of them is the next step to really engaging them.
Yeah, and eating it themselves in class or like sugar snap peas for ratios, show me demonstrate the ratios and then averaging later. Like they get they're kind of playing with their food. Like, I don't like to say that. I don't want them throwing peas or anything like that, but
Sure, yeah.
just actually, washed hands, of course, touching it, examining it, looking at it, and then eating it. It's like a whole new level of experience for them. And also, lots of kids don't eat those, and those are a very healthy snack that are affordable for families. And again, we're back to more green in their diet. So,
So you mentioned already in what you're growing about some of the programs you're working on right now, but can you tell us a bit more detail on those programs and how you're changing the world?
I don't know that I'm trying, but so let's see. We have the Try It Tuesday, which is great. We try new things, but we do have to tie it to curriculum. So math and science for sure. A year ago in Iowa, actually, I went to an Egg in the Classroom conference, and this woman said, Can your kids grow chickens on Mars? Mine can." And so I went to her thing and I was hooked. So last year we tried a project called Nuggets on Mars. And so University of North Carolina, I believe it was working with NASA to get kids to think about, like, chicken nuggets are their favorite. And so how would they, if they have to live on Mars, how are they going to get chicken nuggets? And so that's a whole big complicated process because they have to learn about poultry development and poultry processing, but they also have to be able to grow the food to feed the chickens. And so that was a year-long project. There was not a lot of curriculum available, so it was a lot. We had to do a lot of investigating and designing ourselves. But we had an incubator, so we were doing some cell theory development. We had to do 2 trials of that because our first one we got no chickens. It was very sad. So we did it again. We had chickens. We grew different types of plants, and then we got to study like robotics. There's a lettuce company in Massachusetts that grows all their lettuce hands free. And so it's just an idea of like trying to get things to think about agriculture, but in the future to use the least amount of water, the least amount of additives, etc. So that's a year-long project. And then this summer, I found another one that also is tied to space, and that's called Growing Beyond Earth. And so that's where we actually I got a grant, and through Mars Farms, we have a growth chamber, and in the classroom, we are growing cultivars for basil and cilantro that they are actually growing on the space station. And it's just amazing because we get to Zoom with these NASA scientists. We were Zooming with Kennedy Space Center, excuse me, during the hurricane. So here's this scientist with his iPhone walking around NASA, explaining all these great things to kids about plant science and how things grow. And my kid, the vocabulary was beyond belief, and they just ate it up. They wrote, their notes are pages long. So it's very exciting. And so our whole 6th grade team is doing that. So we've written several grants, and we're just now getting the money. And so we're trying to make sure that we're covering all those things: eggs, chickens, plants, space station, all of it.
I think it's so wonderful. I'm sure it's frustrating to not have curriculum just ready to go because it is that much more work. And we know that teachers are overworked and underpaid. Seems to be a pretty universal thing. But how wonderful it is for your students to see teachers who are engaged enough to make that happen for them, even when it does mean designing your own curriculum. And also that your students are seeing that you don't have to have a fancy special education or a fancy special lab or whatever else to do science, that science is just something they can pursue and they can ask a question and figure out how to answer it. And just to make that accessible for them, because I know, especially in lower income schools where there's not a ton of money for fancy science things, to see how they can make that still be a thing that they can pursue without those resources is wonderful.
Yeah. And, the one thing that the lockdown really enabled for us is Zoom. And so I've brought farmers into the classroom before, but Zoom makes it even more accessible. So I know that you've had Ginny Holterman on, Almond Girl Ginny. So she's amazing. Like, social media is amazing. I connected with her, I don't even know how many years ago, and she's so helpful. And so I started Zooming with her, The kids, I mean, as I said, they grow up around these orchards, but they don't know anything. So it also helps me to reinforce like there's an actual person behind it and they are scientists, right? They have a hypothesis. Every day they go out there, they're trying to discover what's going to work best for their crop. They're dealing with the government and politics, the watering, all of it. Like a farmer is all those things. It's not some old white guy on a tractor. It's like all these people and all of these things. And they can be that as well.
I think that like that's the message, right? For kids and for lots of adults in the world too. Yeah, yeah, that farmer is not someone who's just out there doing a simple job. You know, that there's so much behind the food that's being grown. And I mean, we all take things for granted. I mean, I don't necessarily know how the power comes into my house or all the elements of, all the things that I purchase, but food is one of those elemental things that we all need to survive. So I think that sometimes there is that lack of respect for the people who are growing the things that are actually keeping us all alive, right?
Yes, and I think also like Big Ag has gotten like a really bad name. And I understand the history behind. I'm old enough to know all about the history, but I think that was then and this is now. And farmers are really dialed into the most efficient use of water, power, drones, all of the things, and making the most nutrient dense food possible. And it's really important to get their stories out too. Like it's just so complex. There's so many things available. I mean, I didn't even, when I went to Maine, I didn't even know about aquaculture, like fishing and lobster and all that. That's agriculture. I didn't even know that. Like, and I'm this old. How did I not know that? That's a thing.
Yeah, we just interviewed a fish farmer the other day, actually, and we were full of questions because same, right? You don't know what it takes to grow these things, and when there's only 2% of the population growing all the food, we
Yes.
you know we have to be efficient. Like farmers have to, and we have to use the resources that we have in hand. We have to, you know, value the water and preserve it and make sure that the land is productive. I mean, who more than the people who are growing the food know that soil is, an incredibly important, or maybe the most important element in terms of growing the food that we're eating. So it yeah, that impression of agriculture as an industry that doesn't care is definitely outdated or misled.
Right? Yes. And also even like simple things kids don't know about beneficial bugs. So it's really great when you're talking to someone and they say, "Oh, well, we introduced these insects to counteract those other insects," rather than they didn't just come out there and spray a bunch of unnecessary chemicals. They had beneficial bugs. And like our garden teacher, she teaches the kids that. Like our kids that are in garden club, they understand, oh, that's a good bug, that's a bad bug. What do we need those for?
So, what do you find most excites and engages your students when it comes to ag education?
I think the most exciting thing is just anything that has to do with them creating it or building it. I mean, tasting is important. That's so fun. They love Try It Tuesday. I mean, they ask me ahead. I try to keep it a surprise. But if we are when we're planting, they're touching soil, they're putting the seeds in, or when it grows, they're so excited the next day that if it's sprouted, like our NASA project, they're sprouting really fast. I'm not sure what is in the growing medium, but that's exciting to them. They want to see change. They want it. If they can build it, then they're all for it. They also really do enjoy Zooming with actual people. And 1 year I Zoomed with Nicole Jolly from True Food TV because I use a lot of her videos and I edit them with Edpuzzle, which is a video editing program so I can put in math, comprehension questions, etc. But they Zoomed with her and they had their questions ahead of time. And the takeaway was, oh my gosh, a YouTuber talked to me. I mean, you just don't know with sixth grade what is going to be like the thing that is so exciting for them. But the real people connection, definitely up there in the top.
So, do you have any sort of things that are consistently surprising to your students or consistently misunderstood? And what funny things have happened? Because I mean, sixth
Uh,
graders are a trip anyway. Um,
I know I saw the question ahead of time. I thought funny. I don't know. They're goofy all the time. I don't have any like hilarious anecdotes to share. I just have like surprising things, like the girl who thought walnuts were man-made. I had a cotton farmer come to class once, and that was pretty cool because cotton used to be huge in California, but it's a very thirsty plant. It's not, we don't grow it so much. But he came in, showed the kids all about that. And in that process, he said, "Oh, I also grow peaches for Del Monte." Well, Del Monte is a huge canner and huge thing in this area. So we ended up doing a math lesson on like a would you rather on canned peaches, the different sizes or a fresh peach. And we're free and reduced lunch school. And I had a 12-year-old girl that they put canned peaches on lunch tray for 100 years. She said, "Oh, that's what that is? I don't eat that thing." And she loved the peaches. She ate fresh peaches, canned peaches. She wanted the diced peaches. She said, "I never ate that thing. It slid off my plate." And that was like, oh my goodness, slid off your plate. Like that's what it looks like. It looks like this big orange foreign object to her. It didn't look healthy or tasty, and she couldn't get enough peaches after that. So I think just anything real world with kids is vital. Like you just have to try it, show it to them. The dairy, like they don't have a concept about cheese, how cheese is made, or yogurt, or any of the extra or the byproducts of cows, all the things sort of almost in a holistic Native American approach. Like no, nothing is wasted. Farmers waste nothing. There's nothing that's thrown away. They use the whole cow, the whole almond tree, the whole everything. So that's also always a big shock. They don't know.
Julie, you've been a teacher for a few years and had to teach during the pandemic. So you already mentioned some of the positive aspects of Zoom, but what are some of the ways that teaching you feel has changed even in a short span of time, and both in the positive ways and in ways that are more challenging?
I think in the positive ways, technology certainly is helpful. As I mentioned, a couple of things like there's tools that are just so great because there is no one size fits all curriculum. So it's not really out of the question that we would have to create things to teach kids because I mean, by the time it's published, it's outdated, in terms of technology and growing things. So I do love the tech aspect, but I think it's taking us a couple of years to bring back social skills and patience. Um, they just want to swipe left on everything. And like I'm in the middle at the front of the room and they cannot swipe left. I'm still here. They cannot mute me. They cannot swipe left. Like it's hard to keep their attention. And sometimes I don't want to. Like they have to sit on it. They have to think. They have to perseverate over a question. They can't just like swipe left. Oh, we're done with her. TikTok. TikTok is fun and it's great, but we can't do everything in 10 seconds or less. Like we have to think about it. We have to actually try the science. Like it was really great that our egg project failed because we had to learn from that. And the kids had to examine like what did we touch the eggs too much? Was the temperature not right? Like we had collected all the data and all three classes did not work. So obviously it was the eggs, we hope, not us, but um it took more than 10 seconds to learn that. So I think that's the biggest thing that we need.
I need to remind myself of that sometimes too. I feel like my own I legitimately do feel, like I have less patience or maybe capacity, or I don't know, there are so many things to distract me, and maybe that's part of being a parent and business owner and doing lots of things too, but yeah, but finding the time and forcing myself to focus on one thing at a time is a challenge for me too. So I'm sure that for grade sixers that it's a similar situation.
I've noticed, Arlene, too. I don't know if I told you, but I work from home, Julie, so I listen to a lot of like self-improvement books while I'm working because I'm not really listening to them. And all of them start with people who've done amazing things. And then I realized that all of them are men, and it never mentions their households or their children or their families or anything beyond their work. And it
Right.
occurred to me that they're never talking about women with kids because we're too busy doing everything else, or men who are actively engaged in taking care of their kids, because it's not just women who raise children, but men who are free to do their work get a lot more accomplished a lot faster, and they get talked about a lot more. So,
Well, that's true. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a sticky wicket, but definitely because, women are, I believe anyway, are multitaskers, right? Because they are the ones who had the children or adopted the children, and they have to do all the things all the time. So I think teachers, not all teachers, but female teachers are sort of like moms. I mean, we're like surrogate moms or whatever, foster moms all day long, right? And we have 29 children. And I mean, I'm here at science camp, and it's not a vacation. So
Yes, Julie's
yeah.
taking time out of her science camp experience to talk to us, so we definitely appreciate her
Oh yeah,
time
no
today.
problem. They're just like, I saw, I think it's a meme. I saw one and it said like, teaching is, I mean, have you ever tried to serve, 29 students, very specific meals, all plated beautifully, arriving at the table at the same time, while someone who hasn't served a meal before is telling you how to do it. And that's about right.
And then write down a report of it afterwards.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel so bad. Our daughter is starting kindergarten this year, and I went in to meet the teacher, and I said, we're very engaged parents, and she kind of got this look, and I said, oh, no, 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 I will not tell you how to do your job. I mean, like, if you need crayons donated, you need a field trip person, I'm on it.
There you
I
go.
said, you have the state and the federal government, you have enough people telling you how to do your job. I
Yeah.
am not. And she was concerned about, what our academic goals were for this year. It's like, she's 5. Like,
Right.
maybe if she can write her name and not hit people and not pee her pants, like, I'm going to call that a success.
Right? That's a
Like,
win for the day.
he's just, we put so much on teachers. Like, you guys are magically going to raise our children for us. Ugh, anyway, um, if other teachers or homeschooling parents or non-homeschooling parents who just want to teach their kids shit because it's cool, um, want to start using more agriculture and food as part of their curriculums, what resources do you recommend?
Okay, so I definitely recommend it. Well, in my state, California Ag in the Classroom. So that's learnaboutegg.org, because that has tons of free resources. They are for teachers, but also they really do have a lot more components now for the homeschool parents, because that's a trend. Um, they have free stuff on teachers, pay teachers. So if homeschools are doing that, you can find a lot of resources from Learn About Ag there, but you can just go to learnaboutegg.org for free. I like True Food TV. It's a YouTube channel, but there are How Does It Grow videos. Most of them are perfectly fine. There's one that's about figs, and it has like a little sexual innuendo joke, which is fine for adults, but I cannot show it in 6th grade. And I told her that, like, sorry, gonna skip that one, not learning about figs. But all of the rest are really great. They're really solid knowledge. So I recommend that. And I do use social media. Like, I follow farmers, I follow you, I follow people on Instagram and Twitter, because Twitter is very big with educators. Lots of free education goes on there. And so definitely homeschool parents and other teachers can learn a lot for free. Like, it's hard to be a teacher. I don't want to have to pay for everything. So it's really nice when we can all share our ideas and see them. But farmers are great, and they answer your questions. I mean, that's the best thing. And cooperative extension, if you have that, like, they will answer you if you message them and say, hey, I don't know about this or that. And if you say you're a teacher, even homeschool moms should do that, I think. Hi, I'm a teacher. People are always willing to help you, right? And they say, sure, of course, I'll answer that. I'll Zoom with you, because people like kids, and kids ask a lot of crazy questions, and so they're fun, and adults like that. So
Yeah, I find a lot of the farmers who are on social media are there in part because they want to share what they're doing, right? They
yes,
want people to know what's going on, and they're happy to answer questions. So for sure, I mean, I know Katie and I have found the same thing. you and so many of the people that we interview, we connect through social media, and lots of time, most of the time we get a yes. If we ask someone for an interview, they, don't even, lots of people have never listened to the podcast or know who we are, but they're like, yeah, sure. You want to talk? We can talk. So yeah, it's amazing the people that you can meet if you just ask the questions and put yourself out there.
I forgot a major one.
Yes, go ahead.
So the producemoms.com, which is a business, obviously, but I connected with her, the owner, Lori Taylor, very early when I was at Cooperative Extension, because she worked for produce companies and then was considered like a mommy blogger. That's how long ago that was. Now she has this full-fledged business, and her whole thing is to get people to eat more fruits and vegetables. So she has a lot of free resources for any person. Doesn't have to be a teacher. So I've worked with her for 9 or 10 years now. So I should have mentioned her in the beginning, but that's also a great resource because they have a produce challenge calendar. So kids can look at a wheel and decide like, oh, it's going to be Tuesday. Can we have blueberries? And blueberries are nice because you can get those frozen. You don't have to have fresh. Um, Kids love blueberries.
Mm-hmm.
Put them in salad.
All kinds of places.
Yeah.
So often we ask our guests what some of their future goals are. So we were wondering about your future goals, and that can either be with regards to teaching or education, or your personal goals, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, that's I would like to survive science camp. No,
Short-term goals are good too.
Yeah. I would really like to make sure that my whole 6th grade team gets to connect with NASA, because initially it was only my class, because very expensive, so we had to write a lot of grants, and I just really want to make sure that we're equitable to all of the kids at my school. Like, that's really a big thing. I don't want it to be like only my class gets to do this or that. Like, there's 3 of us, and we work really hard to make sure that the kids all have opportunities. So that's my goal, is to make sure that happens this year, so that they all are part of something really big.
That's great. And it's good to have that awareness too of, especially if it's something the kids are excited about, that there doesn't become that, oh, well, you get to be in Mrs. Case's class and I don't.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
yeah,
of course you want the kids to want to be in your class, but at least if, you're offering the same opportunities, then that makes it, more fair for everybody.
Well, and I think it's such an opportunity because I listen to a lot of podcasts, science related podcasts, and they're always interviewing folks who are like, oh no, I didn't really like science and math. And then, I did this one thing in school and now I'm an engineer at NASA, and it's always just
exactly.
some random thing. And they're like, oh yeah, now I'm an aerospace engineer, or whatever. And I'm just like, you never want to be the one who cheats a kid out of that thing that could have sent them onto this tremendous career as an astronaut or whatever.
Exactly. Or maybe not an astronaut. Maybe they're just a water tech down the street. I mean, that's still valuable and viable.
Yep, absolutely. Maybe they're the robot fixer for a dairy.
Exactly.
Or they all want to be farmers, and that would be awesome too.
Well, the cows, like in where we live, there's a big processor called California Dairies. And it just so happens that like milk, we're a #1 dairy county in our state, and like, I don't know what, 5 in the US or something. And milk that is milked today in 3 weeks from now could be in dehydrated form in China. And so that's really significant for our kids to understand, like, your dad's a milker. That's huge. Little baby in China might be getting quality milk because your dad did his job today.
Well, and even just if you look in our fridge, we definitely appreciate our area dairy farmers and many non-area dairy farmers as well, I'm sure. So yeah, it's, for folks who want to say that so and so is just a farmer, like, cool, go clear out your fridge and then we'll talk.
Right.
So we ask all of our guests, if you were going to dominate a category at the county fair, what would it be? And the categories can be real or made up to ensure that you win.
I think I would dominate zucchini bread. I would enter my zucchini bread, and I think that would win.
Now, is this a recipe with chocolate chips or without?
No chocolate chips.
Okay.
Although I put chocolate chips in the pumpkin bread, but I have this zucchini bread recipe that I got from my mother-in-law, but I accidentally messed it up and it tastes better. Don't tell her because
Some unintentional tweaking.
yes,
That's just the secret ingredient. We'll just call it that.
exactly. So
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
add walnuts or raisins or anything?
no, I don't add nuts. I'm highly allergic to grapes, which is hard in this area. So no grapes or raisins. And then I have a lot of family members who cannot have nuts. And like in my classroom is a nut-free classroom. I have a kid
Mhm.
super allergic. So I don't put nuts in that anything that I make. But almonds I do. I can eat almonds, so I put almonds in things, but not walnuts.
Allergies make things so tricky, don't
It's
they?
Oh,
tricky, right? Yeah. And pistachios, I love pistachios and I can't eat those. So those are the two nuts or seeds that I can have.
Sure. So I guess we'll go ahead and move into our cussing and discussing segment. We registered for an online platform called SpeakPipe where you can leave your cussing and discussing entries for us and we'll play them on the show. So if you go to speakpipe.com/barnyard language and leave us a voice memo, we will listen and play them, or you can always send us an email at barnyardlanguage@gmail.com and we'll read it out for you. Katie, what are you cussing and discussing this week?
I have no idea, Arlene.
Uh-oh. Make it a food-based
Oh.
one.
Well, you're
So
happy this week
this has
then.
never happened.
Life is perfect?
Well, I mean, I've never run out of things to talk about ever. This is horrible. Um, I'm going to cuss and discuss being put on this spot and being demanded somebody come up with something to cuss and discuss when I, for some unknown reason, don't have anything to talk about. It's
You have
never
made
happened.
up this segment, Katie. It's not a surprise that it's coming.
I know. Oh, oh, no, here I have one. So social media is all make reels, make videos. Fine. So I tried to make a video the other night, Arlene. Um, my entire family has something called familial essential tremor, which is when your hands shake and it gets worse the older you get and it gets worse the more stressed out you get. Um, I'm going to have to buy a tripod of some sort if anybody thinks that I'm making any more reels that
Oh,
aren't
really?
going to look like there's an earthquake happening while I'm doing it, because trying to hold my phone in my non-dominant hand and then do something with my dominant hand um, made my
Not
essential
happening.
tremor flare up awful bad. It
Oh, I
was
did
it
not
was
know that was a
not good.
thing.
Yep. Thanksgiving dinner at our family is hilarious because watching us like pass gravy boats, it's bad
So
news
you only
bears.
fill everything half full.
Yeah. I'm just gonna start getting Tommy Tippy cups for everything. You gotta laugh about it because it would be really depressing otherwise. So
You could
uh
just say it's the Blair Witch Project, and that's how their film is.
Yeah.
it yeah, we'll call it what cinema verite. That's what our reels are now. Julie, what do you have to cuss and discuss?
Well, I can't be cussing because I'm a teacher. I got to be really careful of that because I will sound like a tractor mouth. But I don't. Let's see. I don't know. I don't have anything that's really irksome at the moment.
Is
But
science camp a sleepover situation? I'm
oh
curious.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
because I supervised one time a sleepover camp for middle schoolers, and that was an experience. So, are you getting any sleep at science camp? That's what we can discuss.
Not a lot. I do have my own cabin, which is really a perk because we're separated. I'm separated from my other two just because the way the population runs, and so it's the only perk. But it's a lot of extra walking. So I'm getting older faster, and like my feet are. So if the golf cart person's coming by, I snag a free ride. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
you're
all about it.
hitchhiking.
I never used to be one of those teachers, but now I am. So
I'm guessing things are probably spread out too.
You're getting older, but the sixth graders are staying the same age, aren't they?
oh yeah, they're
Because
really
every year they're still sixth graders. Ugh.
exactly. And they're so tired. They're hilarious because they're so tired. Oh, Mrs. Kate, I'm so tired. Ugh. Until I get out of soccer ball. Then you'd never seen so much energy in your life. Right. So I said, okay, you guys are
Yeah,
good to go then.
and curfew probably at science camp. Time
Yes.
to go back to your cabins. No.
Yeah. So
Arlene, what do you have to cuss and discuss today?
So, our conversation today reminded me of one, and it's that this is more of a discussing, I guess, that I am in a food rut. I'm the cook for the family, and I just feel completely uninspired these days. And go to the grocery store and end up buying the same stuff over and over again. And it's partly that I know I need to bring in more things and get them to try stuff, but then you also get into that phase of like, I know everyone will eat this. And
Definitely.
tonight I don't have the bandwidth to listen to not some, I've got 4 kids, so they're range from 7 to 16, Julie. So I mean, they're not all going to complain, but then you know that people don't care for it, even if they say it politely. Then it's like, okay, then they get up and, maybe grab an alternate because that's an option. Or they're like, oh, it was okay, or I don't want to finish it. Just get into that stage where some nights you're like, I just want to make something and know everyone's going to eat. And then that just turns into the cycle of making the same thing over and over. So
Yeah.
I know I am bored with my cooking. I don't know that no one else has mentioned it, but I'm definitely bored.
They don't mention it because then they'd have to do it.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So thank you so much, Julie, for joining us today. And
No,
it was
thank
great
you
to
for
meet
having
you.
me.
If
Yeah.
people would like to follow you on social media and learn more about what you're doing at your school and with your kids, where can they find you?
So thank you so much again. I appreciate it. And I'm on Instagram at Teacher Kates. That's my last name, Cates. So Teacher Kates on Instagram. And on Twitter, I'm at Kates_Julie. So see, and that's it. I don't do Facebook, and I'm trying not to make reels or TikToks. I don't know. I don't know about that either, but I am on Instagram and Twitter, and
It's hard to keep on top of all the things. Your
it's not if
Instagram
you're,
is great.
yeah, Instagram's nice and easy, slow for us middle-aged or young old. I'm not sure what category I'm in yet. I don't want to confess that one, but
That's
so
fair.
yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks
thank
for
you.
coming on, Julie.
Yes, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Thank you for joining us today on Barnyard Language. If you enjoy the show, we encourage you to support us by becoming a patron. Go to www.patreon.com/barnyard language to make a small monthly donation to help cover the costs of making the show.
Please rate and review the podcast and follow the show so you never miss an episode.
You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok as Barnyard Language, and on Twitter, we are Barnyard Pod. If you'd like to connect with other farming families, you can join our private Barnyard Language Facebook group.
We're always in search of future guests for the podcast. If you or someone you know would like to chat with us, get in touch. We are a proud member of the Positively Farming Media Podcast Network.